The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Oh, sure, they said about the Oklahoma City Thunder. 68 wins during the regular season. But these are the playoffs, and these are games that they're going to be playing against experienced teams that have won before in the playoffs. Whew. Man, what a beatdown last night as they eliminated Minnesota. What a beatdown in the series, except for an inexplicable nap that they took in game number 3. It is on to the finals, and they await the winner of the series that could conclude tonight if Indiana is able to knock off the Knicks at Madison Square Garden with Karl Anthony Towns, a game-time decision. I think you got to like Indiana's chances. So new blood. Looks like it's going to be new blood in the finals in the NBA. Some very exciting players, but not the traditional teams that we're used to seeing. No Boston Celtics in it. For that matter, new money like the San Antonio Spurs, who were expected to emerge by now with Victor Wembanyama. But they're loading up. They're going to be a factor. But these two teams are not only really good, but they're young. They're young, and they're probably going to stay together because you're not going to have guys coming up for monster contracts yet. And these look like teams where you're going to have some of the superstars saying, hey, I'd like to play there. You know, Kevin Durant is going to be available. Could he wind up maybe back in Oklahoma City? That's possible. But, you know, first things first, let's finish up the Eastern Conference Finals tonight or Saturday or whenever they end, maybe even Monday night, and we'll see what happens once they get started against Oklahoma City next week. You know, ESPN does this because it fills time. It's an easy thing to do. We do it in sports radio all the time. You know, who's the face of the league? Who's the GOAT? And with LeBron James aging out, there are those who would say, well, you know, look at Anthony Edwards. Look at how he showed out in the playoffs last year. Look at what he's doing to elevate a team that was nowhere for a long time. Well, he may get there, but in the last 2 games, Anthony Edwards came up small. What do you have, 16 points in Game 4? And last night he had 19 points, 1 of 7 from 3. You know, it got to the point, it got out of hand early. I mean, the 30-point win by Oklahoma City doesn't even tell the story. It was a bigger blowout than that. It was 26-9 at the end of the first quarter. And there were more turnovers committed by Minnesota than field goals. The game was over 10 minutes in, really. I mean, there was really no need to stay up late for that. And the Stars performed for Oklahoma City and didn't really need to play a whole lot of minutes. The unsung hero in this game, in my mind, was Alex Caruso, who came off the bench playing only 24 minutes, and he had only 8 points. But his defense was amazing. And he had 4 steals. I think he had 2 or maybe even 3 of them in the first quarter. Just an absolutely devastating performance by Oklahoma City, devastating in a good way. And they shot the ball well. They shot 52%. They shot 40% from 3. And again, the defense that they were able to stifle Minnesota with, the Timberwolves, 35 of 85 from the field. So they missed 50 shots, 41% shooting from the field. Mike Conley, who's like 90 years old, played 21 minutes, almost came up with a Blutarski. 0 points, 1 assist. Rudy Gobert only played about half the game. He had 2 points and 5 rebounds. And, you know, Edwards, who needed to elevate his team last night, did not. 7 of 18 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3, and just 19 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP of the league, with a big performance again last night. Almost came up with a triple-double as he was had 34 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. And talked to Scott Van Pelt about the performance that he had and the team had last night.
As the late, great Kobe Bryant once said, the job's not finished, right? 16 are required for a title.
Absolutely.
You've got a dozen. I appreciate that it's just a step in the journey, but what do you and your teammates allow yourself to enjoy most about this significant step?
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work to make it this late into the season. A lot of ups and downs, the emotions of the NBA season, the emotion of the playoffs. It's important to be grateful. It's important to enjoy the moment. You know, you never know how many times stuff like this is going to happen, but it's also very important to know that we have more work to do, and I think this group is the perfect group to tackle that mentally.
Yeah, I think you guys have made that clear. Every man to a man afterwards with Lisa made that point crystal clear. The appetite you guys have to compete is so impressive to me because these are great teams, and you're obliterating teams nightly. What's the source of that, where it's just never satisfied in a game where if we're up 10, let's be up 20. If we're up 20, let's be up 30. It seems like a fire that never goes out.
Yeah, we don't ever play the score. We play possessions. We play to our standard every possession, and we try to win every possession. And when you do that, you go on big runs, and you look up, and you're up 20, you're up 30. You never know what you're up. But we don't focus on the score. We don't focus on anything besides being the best version of us. And that's why we're a pretty good team.
I saw you holding your son and big old headphones on. It's late, but I get it. Let him stay up early. What's been the most memorable moment for your group thus far? Again, understanding that the mountaintop is off in the distance. Has there been a moment as a group that you've really particularly enjoyed, Shay?
I don't know if I have one specific moment, but the best days are like the days in between the competition, the days when we're like on the road together, just chilling, the days when we're at home and we go over to someone's house and watch the game, like the days when we just build camaraderie, the days when we just enjoy each other's company. Those are the best days. Those are the days that nobody sees, that don't, I guess, get on the forefront, but those are the days that we cherish, the days that we really enjoy each other, and they've helped us be the team that we are. So those type of days for sure.
Right on. I love that. What a great answer. Last quick thought here. This is a game and a time of year where it's built off a rhythm and tempo, and you play and you rest. You play and you rest. And I'm sure rest is valuable now, but what do you do with now the week and a day before you play again?
Yeah, we got to stay ready. We've dealt with a little bit of that to start the postseason.
Right.
Coming out the regular season and then sweeping in the first round and waiting for the next round. But, yeah, regardless, it's the biggest stage of basketball in the world ever. So no matter what, we should be very, very ready to go.
Yeah, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP of the league. If this Eastern Series goes to 7, I don't think it will. But if it does, it won't end until Monday. Today's only Thursday. So, we'll get into the usual rest versus rust debate if it gets to that. But more than likely, I think Indiana will close out the series tonight, and both teams will be well rested once they start the finals next week. The Commanders went into phase 2 of off-season workouts, and it wasn't so much who was there, but who was not there. And Terry McLaurin was a no-show, which happened a few years ago when he was looking for a contract extension, and now he's looking for another contract extension going into the last year of his deal. So he's not there. I mean, that's, one player that you probably never have to worry about, but this is just kind of procedure that's going on. I would think, I don't know this, but I would think that before they start the minicamp, which is in a couple of weeks, that they will have a deal worked out. He's 29 years old. This will be probably the last contract that he signs here, and it will probably be a lengthy deal with off-ramps. So, I think they're looking at maybe 3 really good years left for him, which would be great because those would be 3 prime years for Jayden Daniels, and then Jayden Daniels is going to have to get paid. So it'll probably sync up in that way. And they also didn't have Laramie Tunsil there, which is a little concerning in that they just picked him up. But he's also had a reputation for not going to these things in the offseason for Houston and still playing at a high level, so that's not going to be a problem. And Marshawn Lattimore, I don't quite understand. But he's not there. He's got a contract, got 2 years left. Is he looking for an extension? I don't think he can off of last year. So I don't know what's up with that. But, they're off-season workouts, so they are what they are. This is Cliff Kingsbury. He spoke before the workouts yesterday, so nobody knew whether McLaurin was there or not. They didn't find out until they got out on the field. Hey, where's 17? Not there. But, obviously when you get back to work and the news conferences begin for the coordinators and the coaches, the subject always turns to Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, it's huge. I think you look traditionally through the NFL, the guys who've had a ton of success have been able to stay in those long-term, the all-time greats, and just the comfort level, and then you being able to take the ownership of it and understand it inside and out, where now you're correcting people. You don't even need the coaches, and he's kind of getting to that point.
We haven't seen Jayden yet on this offseason, but there's been some speculation over some pictures online that maybe he's put on a little muscle. Does he look different physically?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's still pretty lean, but he's definitely worked really hard at his fitness and the weight room, and I mean he's here early and stays late and does all the things, so I'm sure I haven't seen his weights, but I'm sure that he's a little bit thicker than he was.
Yeah, that was a lot of internet stuff. Hey, look at those arms. How do you get those arms? And nobody's really revealing what his weight is. I'm sure they know. They weigh these guys on a regular basis. But who wouldn't want to be in a situation where people look at you and say, hey, you really need to put on some weight. And, hey, you're looking good because you put on some weight. Nobody really ever says that to most of us. This Dan Quinn, same subject. He's got a quarterback who's coming back in the system. He's comfortable. The offensive coordinator's back, all good. But, hey, what about the weight, Dan?
Have you noticed, does he look any different physically? I mean, he said he's gotten in the weight room.
We haven't, got side by side in the mirror or anything, but he's doing great. Honestly, I don't know what else to share with you about that. He's at the right markers that we want him to be. So he and all the guys have, certain weight and body composition that they're all hitting for. So for him, he's in, the space that he wants to go.
And, finally, you go right to Jayden Daniels, who held a news conference. And by the way, he's got 2 levels of talking. He, in the offseason, especially at the Super Bowl, where he's making the rounds to all the radio and TV stations, he's pretty chatty. When he does these news conferences, he's not uncooperative, but he only tells you what exactly he wants to tell you. It's often a 4, 5, 6-word answer, as it was with this about the noticeable size of his arms.
I was just in the weight room, just working out. You're always trying to improve in different areas, but I don't know what to say about that. Just let the people talk about it.
Yeah, that's about all you're going to get out of him. Deebo Samuel, got to look at him. Reporters did for the first time because these other sessions have been closed. And he was a little bit chatty yesterday. This was Kingsbury and his first comments since they signed Deebo Samuel in the offseason.
One of the best competitors I've gone against as a coach, just seeing him twice a year there in Arizona. I was always so impressed with how Kyle utilized him and did different things with him, and he's a football player through and through. Even being out here at OTAs, just you get him on the field, and he's got a natural feel for things as he's figuring this offense out. But couldn't be more thrilled, having seen it up close and personal for those years to actually get to work with him. He's, like I said, he's a great football player.
Yeah, so it's a nice problem to have with the other receivers that you have in the room. This is something that's been missing here for years. That's wide receiver depth, and it's a true number 2. If you're going to make Terry McLaurin 1, Deebo's number 2, and you've got guys who've made big contributions. I mean, they're loaded up this year. They got a lot of receivers. I wouldn't be surprised to see them deal one of them as we see injuries pile up in training camp and preseason games. This is Kingsbury on being able to make all of those receivers happy.
I've never had a great player that didn't want the ball, and so that kind of comes with the territory. But that's one thing I think that DQ has created, where it's the team above anything else. And these guys that had their success last year and got their touches, they know bringing Deebo in, there's going to be less, but we're going to be better. And I think when they're able to sacrifice for that and understand that the ultimate goal is winning, then it all works itself out. But you want those guys. I mean, they're going to be pissed. I'll get cussed out a few games, but it just comes with the territory. You'd rather have really good players cussing you out than bad players cussing you out. So.
And then, when you look at the receiver room, obviously with Terry, Deebo, and now Jalen to go with Luke and some other guys, do you feel like they're more interchangeable, that you could play them at all the same positions if need be?
We're working towards that. And Noah Brown being back, I thought was huge to get him back. We got to get him healthy, but a lot of guys who understand the system now, played at a really high level, played great in critical situations last year, and so that'll help the young guys come along. But most of those guys can play their inside or out, which is really what you're hopeful of.
Yeah, last year, a lot of questions about who would provide the wide receiver depth, and they dealt a first-round draft pick. Remember that. He went to Philadelphia. And this year, that does seem to be an embarrassment of riches. Last chat here from Deebo Samuel, talking to reporters yesterday. I guess he did have a media availability when they brought him in, but now he's been working out with the team for a while and kind of giving a progress report on how things are going. Debo Samuel.
I've never had a
that's not him. That's the coach talking about Debo. Here's Debo.
Great culture, great energy, great guys. It's a big brotherhood here for sure.
All right, number 5, Jayden Daniels, the relationship you're starting to develop with him. What's impressed you about Jayden on the field and kind of building that rapport?
Just being here for, I think it feel like about 2-3 months now. I feel like the man can make every throw. He's comfortable. He knows what's going on. He knows where the ball needs to go. I just think he's very smart. How calm he is, after watching him like last year, the moment not too big for him, I just think he's a great player.
What's it like for you with this fresh start now that it's kind of getting underway? What's it been like for you?
It's been a smooth process for sure. The guys in the locker room make it easy. When I walked in the locker room, it felt like I've been here before, how the guys treated me, and we just building from that.
What are your early impressions of Cliff?
Oh man, I love Cliff for sure. Offensive guru, expect excellence from everybody, treat everybody the same, and just want the best for the team.
What's it been like working with Terry? I know you've come out here today, but how do you guys stay in touch?
I understand the business side of things, and I kind of like when he stopped coming, I understand his side of the story. So I just not try to get bothered with it and just let him, deal with it on his own and just kind of handle that on his own. But when he was here, man, it was business is business. Feeding off each other energy, trying to get each other better.
Was there anything that you kind of focused on this offseason following last year that you want to work on?
Being in better shape for sure. It's a new offense, so getting that down and just continue to learn every day.
What did you do to get in better shape, and how will that help?
We just training every day. In here, we kind of built a program for me to go by, and that's what we've been doing.
And how will that help?
It's going to help.
What were your impressions of the game?
First meeting him, it was crazy. I kind of played it against him a good bit. So I just think, overall, high energy guy, a great coach for sure.
There was a moment during practice with you and Adam Peters were just talking. How would the comfort knowing that brought you here and how that makes you feel as far as you fitting in, knowing that he's the one who kind of brought you here?
Me and him kind of got history when he was in San Fran. I got to know him very well here. So when I realized I was coming here, I was more excited. One of the first guys to call and talk to, and just continue to build on what we already had.
That's Debo Samuel at OTAs yesterday. That continues and will eventually get to minicamp, and everybody takes off till late July, and it really gets rolling. Coming up, quarterbacks palooza. Terry Bradshaw on Aaron Rodgers and Caleb Williams with damage control. That and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I like to hear people tell stories on the radio, and there is no one who is a better storyteller than Bob Costas. And I urge you to watch the whole thing on YouTube. He did a sit-down with Howard Bryant, who is a longtime writer, broadcaster. He's been with ESPN for a long time. He's briefly with the Washington Post. He's a big baseball guy. Costas, obviously, his love is baseball. And they had about an hour and 10-minute conversation at the 92nd Street Y a couple of weeks ago. So I went through it and pulled out some of the really cool stories that Costas tells, and we'll do that coming up at 10:20, about an hour from now. Talking about stories, this one has really taken on some life. It's kind of a get-off-your-lawn thing, but then again, it really isn't. Terry Bradshaw, I believe, lives in Arkansas in the off-season. I'm not sure what the connection is there because he grew up in Louisiana, and I guess he works in Los Angeles. At least he shows up like 20 weekends a year to do the studio show on Fox, and he's got other things going. He's in his late 70s, and he's always played this country bumpkin, but he's smart. He's really smart, and he was on a show in Arkansas, a radio show. It looked like it was a remote somewhere, so maybe he was there to promote something, or he was an invited guest. I don't think he's a regular on this show, but it wasn't a phone-in. He was actually on the set with the people doing this show in Arkansas, and got into the Aaron Rodgers situation with his old team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are apparently waiting for Aaron Rodgers if and when he wants to play. They're leaving a light on for him, and he can come in and play maybe even after minicamp ends. He might just show up for training camp and try and learn the system, and maybe he's learning the system on his own. Who knows? But Terry Bradshaw is not a fan of this act from Aaron Rodgers.
That's a joke. He shouldn't. That is just, to me, is a joke. What are you going to do? Bring him in for 1 year? Are you kidding me? I mean,
that's not the Steelers' way, right?
No, man, that guy needs to stay in California and go, somewhere and chew on bark and whisper to the gods out there.
100%. These guys on the show, Mr. Bradshaw, know I'm not a fan of his. We've been around each other personally, and he was not a kind person.
He does not. I had to go over and introduce myself to him. He's not. I had to go, hey, Aaron, I'm Terry Bradshaw. I know he knows me, but I just felt like I better tell him who I am. Yeah. And not, you walk in there and you get in his presence and you feel like it's going to start snowing.
That's another good line, which didn't get a lot of play. The bark line people are talking about. The other part is when you get in his presence, you expect it to start snowing, meaning he's, kind of a cold fish. If you're Aaron Rodgers and you see Terry Bradshaw, you ought to go over and say hello to him because Bradshaw paved the way for you. And this diva act that you're able to pull off here, Bradshaw wouldn't have gotten away with it. It didn't work that way in those days in Pittsburgh. Now, he had great players around him. He had Hall of Fame receivers and Lynn Swann and John Stallworth and great players on the offensive line. Some of them are in the Hall of Fame. All that is true. But the fact that's the way that Aaron Rodgers acted towards Terry Bradshaw and Terry Bradshaw saying what he said. So yesterday on PTI, Tony and Mike, who aren't that far behind in years with Bradshaw, especially Tony, they had their reaction to what Terry Bradshaw said on that radio show in Arkansas.
Tone, you agree with Bradshaw's criticism of the Steelers?
This is amazing. This is utterly amazing. Great. Terry Bradshaw won 4 Super Bowls in Pittsburgh. He is one of the most beloved Steelers of all time. He may be the most beloved because he's been on television for 40 years. He's done a Fox show for more than 30 years, right? Every single Sunday. And he just said of Aaron Rodgers, who won a Super Bowl himself, of Aaron Rodgers, who's a dead, solid lock to be in the Hall of Fame with Terry Bradshaw. With Terry Bradshaw. He just said he could stay in California and chew on bark. It's great. Okay, so that's a wow. I just assumed they were tight. Now, I will get to the question. Are the Steelers making a mistake in pursuing Aaron Rodgers? I'm going to tell you no. Yeah, I'm going to tell you no, and this is why. I understand that Aaron Rodgers is a prima donna. I understand he puts his own interest above everybody else's. I understand he's an egomaniac. I like him personally, but I understand all these things. But the question then becomes, do you want Aaron Rodgers or do you want Mason Rudolph? And I watched the Jets a little bit last year.
Out there?
Well, I think so.
Somebody else?
I thought Aaron Rodgers could still throw it. So I would say, okay, for 1 year. And the reason I would say for 1 year, it's this year, Mike. It's not 5 years from now. It's this year, and I would do it.
They appear to have the other elements.
I would do it.
Even though they let Pickens go. But they appear to have the other elements. No. Terry Bradshaw's on the money. At this point, have you paid attention to the last 3 years? Aaron Rodgers has been nothing for the last 3 years.
Certainly with
he
the Jets.
Appears on television more than we do. And he comes on, he does his stuff. That's why Terry Bradshaw's Go Eat Bark is so great. Go take ayahuasca.
One of the greatest
It is
quotes
so
I've ever
great.
heard.
The notion that the Steelers, the picture of stability, and Mike Tomlin, they don't do anything out of character. This is beyond out of character. This looks, let me say this, let me be very plain about this. This looks dumb as hell. It looks embarrassingly stupid for the Pittsburgh Steelers and all they stand for and their consistency of behavior to just lay out in the highway for Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't done jack for 3 years.
So you're saying we have a difference of opinion?
Yeah, we do.
Somebody ought to check Fanatics. I wonder if the T-shirts are already out, either for the Jets or for the Packers. Go Eat Bark, Terry Bradshaw. That's pretty good, and that has picked up quite a bit of momentum in the last 48 hours or so. We'll see where this goes. I guess at some point Rodgers will be asked to address this, and certainly if he signs with the Steelers, that will be a big topic once he comes into camp. What do you think of the legend Terry Bradshaw, the greatest quarterback ever to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do you think about what he said? Yeah, it's going to be a big thing. So that was some fun and games yesterday. Meantime, Lake Forest, Illinois, as the Chicago Bears got back to off-season workouts, Caleb Williams, for the first time, addressed what was a firestorm a couple of weeks ago when excerpts of Seth Wickersham's book, American Kings, came out, and it's all about quarterbacks, but there are parts of it about Caleb Williams and how he and his dad, Carl, had looked at ways that they could possibly avoid Caleb Williams going to the Chicago Bears, and that they were going to, quote, blow it up, and that, that was a place where his dad said quarterbacks go to die, and not a place where he thinks his son should go, and said he'd be willing to take the heat if they pulled a John Elway or what the Mannings did when Eli didn't want to go, or they didn't want him to go play for the San Diego Chargers. He said he would do that, but ultimately he said he would play for the team. He had a rough year in a lot of ways. The team was bad, 5-12. It really turned for the worse after the Hail Mary game here, which was in mid-October. And his numbers were not bad. He threw for 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's the 5th highest single-season passing output in franchise history. But he was sacked 68 times. And there was also the issue of film. And this got a lot of play, too, where he said to his dad, "No one tells me what to watch. I just turn it on." That here was a guy who played 3 years of college football and didn't know how to watch film. Didn't seem to be a problem for Jayden Daniels. Daniels played 5 years, but he certainly knew how to watch tape or film or whatever they call it, and it didn't even tell anybody. They were talking about him showing up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch tape or film before they'd get down to work for practice with the rest of the team. So he addressed that yesterday, and what Courtney Cronin wrote today at ESPN.com, that he actually opened up his media session yesterday, Caleb Williams, with a 3-minute, 55-second opening statement, almost 4 minutes. That's not easy to do, If you don't talk for a living like I do, talking 4 straight minutes is not the easiest thing to do. But here's what he said about the big hubbub about not knowing what to watch and nobody from the team working with him to teach him how to watch tape. He said, "It wasn't that I didn't know how to watch film. It was more or less a sense of learning ways to watch film and be more efficient, learning ways to pick up things better." So it was funny when that one came out, that in context and how I was trying to be portrayed didn't get portrayed that way. I would also say this. There's many coaches they go with. I mean, we'd only see a handful of the coaches that are involved in a football team. We see regular news conferences for the head coach and the coordinators, and occasionally a position coach will be interviewed, but there are just tons and tons of guys for every assistant. There's assistants to the assistant. So if you were curious as to how to watch film, if you had some questions about it, there would have been a lot of people willing to answer your questions. So I don't know about that, but it did cost them, coaches. The head coach, Matt Eberflus, was fired after Week 11. The offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, offensive coordinator, fired after Week 11. And then after Week 14, Matt Eberflus, who just totally botched the clock in that Thanksgiving game against Detroit. I mean, that was a disaster. But, all that happened in his rookie year. So this was Caleb Williams with kind of damage control yesterday at the Bears practice facility in Lake Forest, Illinois.
Through all of, what was, going on, through all of what happened in last year and previous years, I think that was enticing. I think that was something that was glaring to me, that I wanted to come here and be the guy and be a part and be a reason on why Chicago Bears turned this thing around. So that last thing that was said and all of that, I think, was the most important thing, is that I wanted to be here, that I love being here, I love my teammates, I love all the people that got me here, family, friends, Ryan, Kevin, Flus and Shane, all those guys that went through all of that process with me to get me here. But it was all those things, like I said, were thoughts. But the main goal and the main objective of being here is to turn around. That's why I was selected number 1. And so, that's what we're here to do. That's what they brought, me here to do. That's what they brought all these guys here to do. Joe, DJ, all these different guys. And that's why they brought Ben here. And so, like I said, it's a challenge. And we look at those challenges and, we don't laugh. We look at them really, really seriously. And, we go attack them, to the best of our ability to go and change it and turn it around.
So that's Caleb Williams kind of spackling over this big uproar about the Wickersham book, and the proof will be in what he looks like during the regular season. And again, it's not like he's a bust. He didn't have a bust of a year. If you only throw 6 interceptions, now, could he have thrown more if he was getting rid of the ball faster and not taking 68 sacks? Yeah, sure, that would have happened. But reality is that's a good year. 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3,500 yards passing. You take that, and you got to find a way to eliminate the sack. Sure. And, beefing up the offensive line helps. But also, the main thing, and this addresses watching film too, as you know, that if you go to the line of scrimmage and you understand what the defense is doing, you're going to get rid of the ball quickly. You're going to get it to the guy that you think you're going to get it to, or you go through your progressions quickly. But that's what made Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning couldn't move at all. He couldn't move close to Caleb Williams, but his release was always among the highest, if not the highest in the league. He would come to the line of scrimmage, look at what the defense was doing. He was familiar with it, having watched lots and lots of tape, studied and studied and studied, and all of his experience as the years went on, and he would know what to do with it. But his first year, he didn't take as many sacks as Caleb Williams did, but he threw a hell of a lot more interceptions. I think he threw 28 interceptions his first year. Caleb Williams didn't do that. So it's not like he's a bust, but he did not live up to what they had hoped for. And, Jayden Daniels was the rookie of the year, as he should have been. So we'll see what happens in year 2 with a new quarterback. And if there still are some bumps in the road, that's going to be typical. What Jayden Daniels did here was not typical. That was a very, very fortunate set of circumstances, and they have addressed the offensive line, which did a pretty decent job last year. But if they can get that to the point where that's a huge plus for them, watch out. But it looks like Caleb Williams is got his head going in the right direction. This is one that's concerning. Stephon Diggs played at the University of Maryland, dropped in the draft. Scott McLaurin, by the way, this was either last week or the week before. He was on Kevin Sheehan's podcast. And remember, McLaurin was here, I think, like 2015, 2016, and they had back-to-back winning seasons, and they made the playoffs after the 2015 season, but they got rid of him because there are a variety of reasons that have been thrown out. One is that Bruce Allen was jealous of the fact that he was getting a lot of credit for what they did in free agency, especially the real great job that he did, I thought, was in street free agents as the injuries piled up in 2015 and got them to the playoffs with guys that they were picking up late in the year. I thought that was his real strength. And there was also talk that he was drinking again. He'd had drinking issues in other places, but had been successful in this other stops. I mean, he'd been in San Francisco and Seattle on teams that made Super Bowls. So they didn't stick with him. But he told a story that he wanted to take Stephon Diggs in the 4th round, maybe even the 5th round, and Dan Snyder overruled him. Dan Snyder said, don't take him. So it was the highest player on their board when they didn't want to do it. But he's now with the New England Patriots. He's moved around a lot. And there was some video that surfaced over the weekend that showed him passing a bag of pink crystals to women on a boat. Mike Vrabel, the coach, asked about it yesterday, said he would have no comment on that. This was after the OTAs yesterday. He said that, and Diggs was not there, and he said it's going to be handled internally. That's his. So hopefully that's not what it appears to be. If it is, these guys get drug tested all the time, so that may come out in the wash as well. But hopefully that is not what it looks like on that piece of tape there that has come out. All right, coming up in the next hour, much more react from not minicamp, but OTAs yesterday, and great stories from Bob Costas from his appearance at the 92nd Street Y a couple of weeks ago. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. And off we go for the football season. Wait a minute, it's only May. Well, the NFL knows how to dominate the calendar. And in late May, what are we talking about? We're talking about the NFL. We're talking about guys going out there in shorts and helmets, but nothing else. I mean, well, you have to wear a few things, but it's nothing close to real football. But we eat this up. We do. And it's really not a big deal that Terry McLaurin isn't there, but it's something to make a big deal about. Oh, and look at Jayden Daniels' arms. They look bigger. Hey, Jayden, what about your? I don't know. Just been in the weight room, stuff like that. So we'll chew on that for a little bit. But I want to get to this hour, and this was really great to watch and listen to yesterday on YouTube. So I pulled the highlights of it. Bob Costas did an hour sit down with Howard Bryant. This was at the 92nd Street Y. And they're both baseball guys. Brian has written a number of baseball books. I think he's got another one coming out about Jackie Robinson, I think. I think that's the case. But the stories that Costas tells and the way he tells them, they're just great. And I pulled a variety of them, and we'll hear those coming up in about 20 minutes or so. The NBA Finals got the Western side set. And it did go 5 games, and one of the games they got blown out of. I mean, it was a very weird series. We had one close game, one close win by Oklahoma City, where they won by 2 points in Minnesota in Game 4. But the other 3 games that they won were complete blowouts, and last night's blowout, the final score doesn't even tell you what a blowout it was. 30 points doesn't do justice to it, because all you had to do was watch the first quarter, and you'd say, this thing is over. It is over. I mean, they came out with a blitz, and at the end of the first quarter, it was 26-9. There were more turnovers than field goals made by Minnesota in that first quarter. I think they had 14 turnovers at the half. I mean, this was a turn off your television set early kind of game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 34 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. And they really got a great defensive performance by Alex Caruso coming off the bench. He had 4 steals, 2 of them in the first quarter. They just suffocated Minnesota. And ESPN had spent a lot of yesterday, hyping this game because it was an ESPN game, talking about Anthony Edwards being the new face of the NBA. Well, he's hide your face now after the last 2 games he had. Last night, 1 for 7 from 3, 7 of 18 overall, just 19 points. And the Timberwolves shot 41%. Not that they were just ice cold. It was just the defense was that good from Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City shot lights out. They were 52% from the field, 40% from 3, including a 3 at the end of the first quarter at the buzzer there to just, really say, go someplace else. Go watch something else because this is over. Jalen Williams has had bigger nights, but did more than what was necessary last night with 19 points. Celebrated the win while holding the trophy. They get a trophy. I'm not a big fan of this, but they give you a trophy for the Western Conference Championship, a big one, and he was holding it while he chatted it up with SVP last night on ESPN.
It's pretty cool. I've never really won anything, so it's cool that I'm one step closer to, winning something big. This moment is very cool. We're going to enjoy it for probably about 2 days, and then, obviously we got bigger fish to fry.
How heavy is that thing?
I can't lie. It's like holding a kid. It's like 40 pounds.
Yeah, you want to put it down? Because it looks a little heavy. Like it looks like it might be so. You're going to hold that thing, huh?
No, I'm going to hold it. I brought it out here. I'm going to hold it. I need to turn it over so I can see it. There we go.
Heck yeah. So as we look behind you, I see Shai and his family, and it's just this connectivity of the group. Last time you were on with me, you mentioned Chet and his whole crew in the building in Minnesota. It's something I feel like we've asked so often about, Jalen, but just when you really enjoy each other's company, and Shai's saying you're spending off days together, I just feel like that's just so productive on the floor. Do you think that that's a big part of what we see nightly from your group?
For sure. We take pride in it. I think everybody always talks about how we're kind of like an AAU team, and it sounds like a joke, but it's also kind of just like how our team is. Like, we really enjoy being around each other. We play so many games in the NBA. You go through so many ups and downs. I feel like it just has made us closer. We're all around the same age. We're all going through the same part of the NBA together, and we kind of lean in on that to propel us forward.
I would disagree about the AAU just because you can lose 4 or 5 games in a day, and it's fine as long as everybody gets their looks and gets those high major looks. But you guys as a group are now setting this aggressive pace, and you get to rest for a week. Is that a bad thing, though, when you've got this kind of rhythm as a team?
There's no such thing as bad rest, especially when you start getting deep into the season. But yeah, it'll be a good time to recharge. And just looking forward to getting better during that week is going to be the biggest thing.
No such thing as bad rest, but there is such thing as bed rest, right? So they will wait a week and a day. I guess they get started next Friday? I think it's next Friday when they get underway. Crazy. But you could still have the Eastern Finals go till Monday. That's still a possibility, though I think Indiana is going to close them out at the Garden tonight, especially with Karl Anthony Towns, a game-time decision. And even if he plays, he's playing on a knee that's not right. It wasn't great in that game the other night, and he banged knees at the end, kind of limped his way through the last couple of minutes of the game. I just think that Indiana is rolling right now, and they look good. You're going to have 2 young teams playing in the finals, and these are teams that could meet on a regular basis. Is it as great for the NBA where you had 2 major markets and 2 heritage teams like the Celtics and the Lakers meeting all the time when Magic and Bird were in their prime? No, but it is what it is. And the NBA's, NBA is a little bit different now because of the national television coverage. And, when Bird and Magic were getting started there, the NBA finals were on tape delay and cable TV was in its infancy. So it's a little bit different that, you have 2 small markets that are going to be likely playing in the NBA final. Now, the Knicks could make an enormous comeback and the number 1 market gets in, but it doesn't look like it's heading in that direction. All right, phase 2 of the off-season workouts for the Washington Commanders. They are voluntary, and it is, not really a big deal that Terry McLaurin isn't there, especially with his longtime standing with the team. But, you'd like to have him there. The one that really surprises me is Laramie Tunsil, who just got here. It seemed like he'd need to get more familiar, but he's got a history of this in Houston, and he's playing left tackle. So I don't know. But, you want to get your timing down with the other linemen. He'll be there at mandatory minicamp, but no show there. And then Marshawn Lattimore, I don't quite understand that either. He's got 2 years left on his contract. I don't think he's in a position to look for an extension, so I don't know why he's not there. But 3 key veterans not showing up. But a key veteran, and we can now call him a veteran, is Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is back for his 2nd year, and there's a whole lot of hype around him, obviously. You're putting him in the conversation as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, not just the best rookie, as he was last year, but one of the best. And with a way he goes about himself of, I'm not getting caught up in any of this stuff.
I mean, I've never been the type of individual that I could say looks for fame. I'm a very introverted individual. So I just go out there and live my life how I live it. I don't really go too many places. I didn't before that, so I don't think that's going to change for me either.
Yeah, the few times he's been seen, he went to basketball games with his mom, and then there looked like a date that he had in Miami a few weeks ago with his mom in the back seat. So I don't think you have to worry about how Jayden Daniels is spending his time away from the facility. And everything you hear is he's always at the facility. He's there at 5 o'clock in the morning. He's there late. He was there all off season, getting himself into better, not shape, but better size. He's put on some muscle. It looks like, though, they were kind of evasive about exactly that. Usually you worry about, is he getting his weight down? Is he getting his weight down? This case, they want to know if he's getting his weight up. But at the weight he played at last year, whatever it was, 205, 210, he only missed like parts of games. He hurt his ribs in the Carolina game, so he only played like a quarter there. And then they took him out of the Dallas game, but they didn't need to win that. I think that was more for precaution than anything else. And he made all the starts. He started every regular season game, 17 games, and he started 3 games in the playoffs. I don't think you can really say he was somebody who needs to put on muscle, though it would probably help him in his career. But in terms of staying healthy, that doesn't seem to be that big of an issue. Here's Dan Quinn, on what he sees in year 2 for his quarterback.
He's an amazing teammate. The amount of work that he puts in that goes unseen here. To get ready to play, to learn it, to teach others, to connect the guys that's going through. There is no flinch in Jayden Daniels. He is an absolute, as focused and relentless as you could about getting better. And so that's why I said for us around here, man, we appreciate that. And there's a lot of things that he and the rest of us are really digging in hard on to say, all right, can we get this better? And if he does that, I do that, others do that. We thought collectively, and there's a lot of space we can get better at.
He likes that word, space. This is about his staff, and this is another plus about this year. I think they lost maybe 1 or 2 guys, but got both coordinators back. You got almost the full offensive staff. A couple of them had offers to go other places and wound up staying, and that's what is really key for a coach who's been on a variety of staffs. He was in Seattle when they went to the Super Bowl. He spent the last couple of years in Dallas, head coach in Atlanta, but he's moved around and does very much value his assistant coaches.
The best of the best coaches, man, lie awake at night thinking how am I effing going to get this guy better? And family show. And there's a lot of coaches here that do that. To say, I'm going to figure it out. And that's what's fun about this time. I said earlier, it's why it is their time to shine. There's a lot of teaching that has to go on. These next 3 weeks are critical for the players that are still learning the system or trying to find a role. And so we'll find out a lot. Every day matters, the drills matter, the teach-backs matter, because we're finding out a lot about them.
And they want to find out about their top draft pick, Josh Connerly, the tackle from Oregon. And you remember this as part of the draft story, that Adam Peters came out after they drafted him and showed a piece of paper where Cliff Kingsbury had written that he wanted Adam Peters to take him. That's an offensive coordinator. Sometimes you'd think they're looking for skill position guys, another receiver, maybe a running back. No, he wanted a tackle. He wanted this guy, and this was the first time we've heard from Kingsbury on that little note that he left Adam Peters.
I've known Adam a long time, so we always have fun with each other. But just being around Josh, the type of person he is, his makeup, competitive spirit, the desire to be great, and just he's young, and I think the skill set is definitely there, and the sky's the limit for the talent. I think building it, you see in our division, the team who just won the whole thing, they built it starting up front, and I think to try and keep up with those type teams, you got to continue to do that and stock that room. Injuries happen. We're really impressed with the line last year and the job they did, but injuries happen, and you always got to try and get younger, and the more depth you have in that room, the better you're going to do.
Last thing was at the end of the Dan Quinn news conference. This is kind of how things wrapped up, and I think it addresses the mindset that he's got for the team. This is Scott Abraham of ABC 7 with a question that I think, is a typical question that you ask for a team that had won 4 games the year before and got to the NFC Championship game. But listen to the Dan Quinn reaction.
Last year, you guys are kind of like the hunters. Now this year,
we're always the hunters.
Okay.
Don't go there. I know I'm cutting you off right before you get started.
Okay.
Yeah. That way we don't have to get into, are you the hunter or the hunted? We are always the hunters.
Explain that then, because you've had a lot of success last year.
I knew where you were going with that. I like it. I'm glad.
And in a sense, last year you're 1 game away from going to the Super Bowl. So obviously the bar has been raised. Teams below you are looking at trying to knock you guys off in a sense. So that role reversal of how this team is going to handle success, what does that look like to you?
So we've got a lot to prove. And so for us, that is what the hunting is. It's not something that's going to be on at the end of the season. It's right now about these next 3 weeks. We've got a couple weeks OTAs and a mini camp, and it's like absolutely going after it as hard as we can to see how good we can get, and then we'll worry about training camp. But the hunter is a mindset. It's an attitude of absolutely delivering and going for it, but that's who we are, and that doesn't change on anything done previously. It's just how we get down.
Yeah, it's another form of Joe Gibbs saying, hey, we have to have everybody at their best. I don't care that they're 1-10, So that's the mindset, and that's not a surprise. I mean, how many times you hear a coach say, oh, yeah, we're the top dogs. Somebody's got to knock us off. Problem that they have is the best team in the NFL right now is in their division. And you heard Cliff Kingsbury say, you look at how the Philadelphia Eagles were built. They were built up front. We got to do things to keep pace with them. Now, the Sam Cosmi situation is going to be interesting to watch on the offensive line because he's coming off that devastating knee injury that he suffered late in the year. That was in the Detroit game. So that's in January, and we're just in March and in May here. So, by the time they get to training camp, I don't think it's likely he's going to be ready to go. And the question is he going to have to miss the entire year? But they say he's on track, whatever on track means. But, Quinn said they're going to play it just by what has been set up by the trainers and not going to rush it or anything like that. But, how much is that going to mean as they redo the line? Because he's here. He signed a long-term contract last year. And they would like to get him back, but they don't want to rush him back onto the field. All right, coming up, another story where more is not better. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Graham is coming up at 11 o'clock. You've heard a lot of talk with these conference spring meetings going on around the country that it's inevitable we're going to get to 16 teams in the college football playoff, and it's going to happen the year after next. So we've only had 1 year where it's jumped from 4 to 12, and then one more year of 12, and then it looks like it's going to go to 16 because, as we often say, follow the money. It's more money, more games, more money. I'm not a big fan of the 12 now, to be honest with you. Too many of those games were blowouts. It's not like the college basketball tournament, because those games are quick. They're in 2 hours, a little under 2 hours. These games are, 3.5, and boom, once they get out of hand, so what? I just and then the season goes too long. It's college football season should not wrap up later than we used to have the Super Bowl. It was like January 20th of this year. You're coming off a weekend where you've got the conference championship games set up. Big weekend of playoffs, and then, we've got this national championship game, which was set up like 10 days earlier. But that's where it's going, because the more product you have for television, the more money that you make. Now, they're in sort of an odd spot here because television is undergoing some change. The contracts run through 2032, so that's quite a ways away. CBS and the parent company, Paramount Global, are in limbo with a merger with Skydance Media, while Warner Brothers Discovery has been exploring spinning off TNT. TNT doesn't have the NBA. That was, I guess, their last game last night, right? The crew, they're still going to do pre- and post-game shows on ESPN, but their days with TNT doing basketball are over. Ernie Johnson and Shaq and Kenny and Barkley, that's going away from TNT, and then you got the True TV channels, and they do March Madness and all that stuff. But, what is that going to mean as they look to add more product for college football? NCAA President Charlie Baker, and the NCAA's, influence over this is minimal. But, they've talked about not only expanding this football, but they're looking to go to a 72 or 76 team format for the NCAA tournament. I mean, there are even years where they talk, we need 128, just means one more weekend. No. And what has it been, 10 years, maybe more, since they went from 64 to 68? Who really pays that much attention to the games on Tuesday and Wednesday night? I think for most of us, The NCAA tournament starts at noon on Thursday. That's when they roll out the games. And there have been years when we've carried all these games, not at this station, but at others, and I've, been at home watching college basketball all day. I think that's when people really start to get interested in it. So now you're going to add, you've got 68 now. You're going to add a minimum of 4 and maybe 8 more teams. How are you going to squeeze this in? Are you going to start playing these games on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon? And you can't start any earlier because you got the conference tournaments wrapping up on Sunday in some cases. Some of them wrap up on Saturday. But you got to get the teams to the site. There's just no time for this. But they're trying to, jam 10 pounds of feathers into a 5-pound bag. I'd use another word than feathers, but it's a show I can't. Anyway, that's where they seem to be going right now. And it's I think in both cases, it's a case of more is not better. It is not better, but that's where we're headed for this. It's kind of a shame because I think the popularity of the NCAA tournament is tied in a big way to the office pool. And when you had 64, maybe it's not as cumbersome now because it's all done online instead of handout sheets of draws or brackets where you fill those out. That's a different way of doing things. But you also have, and this is always, you may seem like not a big deal to you, but you also have these automatics that you have from the first, they call them the first 4, the play-in games. So they automatically give you that. Well, sometimes you might want to have a team that goes a couple of rounds out of that. We've had Final Four teams come out of that. So that's my 2 cents on that. Finally, this, you go to the refrigerator or even the pantry, and you see on a can, sell by, and you go, oh, boy, this is expired. No, it's not. This is from the food section of the Post from yesterday. And they say labels are inconsistent, leaving consumers uncertain about item safety and more likely to waste food. And what they find is that the date labels are often unclear, inconsistent, and misleading. And when they tell you, use by, doesn't mean that it's necessarily gone bad, or sell by certainly doesn't mean. It's just it more affects taste rather than safety. And they say because of this, Americans throw out about 3 billion pounds of food annually, which equates to $7 billion in losses. And they go through some of these things like the myths. All food should be thrown away as soon as the printed date passes. No. Flavors might fade. Old almonds, for example, won't be overrun with bacteria, but will taste a little bit different as their oils break down. Acidic dairy products, such as yogurt and sour cream, are inhospitable to dangerous bacteria, but may become more tart over time. You might also find obvious spoilage like mold in an open yogurt container. But, by and large, if you see a date that's gone past, it doesn't mean it's necessarily gone bad if it's expired. Myth number 2, you can always rely on your senses when assessing food past its due date. You could, certainly like deli meats and things like that, it could smell, but in many cases, it's not the case. Your nose doesn't tell everything. Myth, date labels are nationally standardized. Use best by, expires on, or any of the other phrases you might see stamped on your food don't have official definitions. The federal government requires a use-by date only on infant formula, the date on the last point at which the manufacturer guarantees the nutritional content. That's what fades more than anything else. Milk must bear a sell-by date of 12 days post-pasteurization, even though milk usually lasts longer. After that, stores can't legally sell it. Sometimes that has to do with refrigeration, too, not the date. Most date labels are meaningless. Companies determine shelf life in a number of ways, from rigorous original research to reliance on past product data or food science concepts or even consumer complaints and educated guesses. Depending on how the company arrives at the date, could be very conservative with a lot of decent quality shelf life remaining. Yeah, I think I felt that way. So it's you don't freak out necessarily about the date. Same thing with prescription medicine, as far as I know, or even over-the-counter medicines, when you see a date, it doesn't mean it's dangerous to take it. It just means it may have lost some effectiveness. And finally, this myth, food banks cannot accept expired food. Many nonprofits accept food donations from the best by date. In Utah, for example, Bountiful Food Pantry invites donations of food for up to 3 years past the printed date. The pantry's website explains our army of volunteers go through all the food items and make sure they're still safe. So, we use the word waste a lot these days. We waste a lot of food. It says, $7 billion in expired food. That's not to say that, there are things in the back of your pantry, which in some cases, and I've had this too, are 10 years old. Should you open those? No, probably shouldn't do that. And things like champagne, I don't really drink a lot of champagne, but occasionally you'll pull one out and it's been there for long enough that the bubbles are pretty much gone, but it's not dangerous to drink. So relax a little bit. All right, we could have the NBA Finals set up tonight. I'm anticipating that Indiana will go to New York and win that game. If not, they'll play Game 6 in Indiana on Saturday. And if the Knicks win both those games, they settle this all in New York on Monday. I don't think it gets to that, but we'll see. Well, we'll be talking about that and more tomorrow. I imagine more stuff coming out of OTAs for the Commanders and a whole lot of other stuff. Bram will have his reaction to day one of OTAs yesterday and more as he is up next. And I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.